Hey everybody, Glenn here at H2O Studio, the History Through the Eyes of a Millennial, episode number 7 with Chris Pacifici. Chris, last week we had a couple of episodes that we aired last week, and we were talking about reboots and remakes, going back in time and comparing movies that were made some time ago, in some cases back in the 30s, like A Star Is Born.
Right.
Crappy remakes, crappy sequels, but of course we go off the beaten path and we talk about a lot of actors, and again, this one is, I'm glad you chose Viggo Mortensen this week for many reasons. One, he's a tremendous actor.
Yes.
Plus his obvious local ties here to Watertown. Viggo Mortensen, born in 1958, Chris, right here in Watertown, New York. I didn't know that.
Yeah, his mom was from New York. His mom was born here in Watertown. She was American. His dad was from Denmark.
Yeah, and his dad just passed not too long ago. I believe his parents both died, I think, not too long ago. But he does have property up here where his dad lived near Clayton. And it's very well known that Viggo is seen around the area at least once a year, it seems.
Yes, he's known to make an appearance here and now from in Watertown. His primary residence is in Madrid, Spain. He lives there because his partner, Adriana Gil, is Spanish, so he lives there in Madrid with her. But he is known for showing his face around here from time to time.
Yeah, typically around Christmas, someone saw him at a comic book place with a young, probably his nephew or someone. Does he have children?
He has one son.
Okay, that was probably his son then.
Who was 33 years old.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So he's an adult. Gotcha. So now here's the thing. Because Viggo is so international, he knows, 4 or 5 languages.
Yes.
Because his father was apparently an engineer of some type. You go ahead.
He had managed the farms and ranches in Europe and here in America.
Did he really?
Yes.
And South America as well. So in the process, Viggo got to learn a lot about the world, different languages. But the one distinctive characteristic about Viggo is his international face.
Yes.
He's very European looking, despite the fact, obviously, born and raised in America and had huge ties here to Watertown High School.
Yes.
He looks like he's from Belgium.
I know. He looks like he's from Belgium or some other part of Europe.
Yeah.
But no, he graduated from Watertown High School in 1976. One of my mom's friends actually dated him in high school.
Really interesting.
Yes.
There's a famous picture. I don't know how famous it is. I consider it famous. There's a picture of him as a high school student at Watertown High School. He was in the swim team. So typically anyone in the swim team, they have them in bathing suits standing near or in the pool. Well, these guys were in the pool in their uniforms. I don't know if you ever saw that picture before. And something tells me Viggo might have had something to do with that. Again, this is in the early 70s where, you couldn't break the rules, particularly when it came to yearbook pictures. You did what you had to do.
Right.
But somehow everyone's got pictures of themselves in basketball uniforms, baseball uniforms, football uniforms, and the swim team, they're all dressed up in their school clothes and they're in the water. That was very theatrical, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's very creative of them.
So, again, the first time I saw him without knowing it was Viggo Mortensen was in Witness. He played a small role in Witness with Harrison Ford.
Yes.
Good movie.
Yes, very good movie. My mom and I saw him in a movie he did with Naomi Watts. It was I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was in it. He played a Russian British spy who was infiltrating this Russian organized crime family. He played a chauffeur, and is
that Eastern Crossings?
Yes, Eastern Crossings. And he reads the diary of a young girl who was one of the prostitutes in the crime family the crime family used. And I was very young. My mom wanted to see it. We saw like clips of it, bits of it in the theaters, and then she took me to see something else. But she wanted to see it because of Viggo.
Well, I'll tell you, why not? I mean, again, it's always cool to know someone came from your area.
It is.
But despite that, he could be from Timbuktu. He's one of the best actors in Hollywood right now.
He is. He's done such a wide variety of films. I also know him from the Lord of the Rings films.
Right. Sure.
He was in that. He also did G.I. Jane with
Demi Moore.
Demi Moore, yes.
Yeah, sure.
Demi Moore, and
he was in the submarine movie, whichever. I don't know. Again, he did a lot of things, but Witness was the first time I remember. He was with Michael Douglas, a movie. He also did Oh boy! Now you're testing my memory here. He did A Walk on the Moon, which was a great movie, and again, one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite directors is David Cronenberg. He directed Viggo, and believe in 2005 in a movie called The History of Violence.
Yes,
I don't know if you ever saw that.
I've heard of the movie. I've seen bits of it.
You should really see it. Let me tell you why. It's a simple movie. It's from what do they call those movies? A graphic novel. So it was a very simple movie about, and I love these type of stories, Chris, where it's the new guy in town or the mysterious person that had a different past from what you speculate now. So again, that guy that takes care of business when he needed to, with the bad guys coming into town trying to rob his restaurant in a small town in Indiana, and he reacts to it because at the end of the day, he's not just an ordinary person.
Right.
He was a hitman for the Philadelphia mob, but he walked away from that, and now he's in this completely new world with his family. But he has to demonstrate his toughness by killing these really two bad guys.
Yeah.
And what's cool about it is that David Cronenberg is, I guess you can call him an international director because he's from Quebec, he's from Canada, but he always seems to get those types of people, that have that international flair, like Eastern Crossings. He directed that, and Viggo's a perfect actor for him. There's no doubt.
He is, and also getting back to like Michael Douglas, like he and Michael Douglas look like they could have been brothers almost, or even father and son, because they do look similar in their looks.
Yeah, and I'm sure they respect each other as well.
Yes.
So Viggo Mortensen, coming from Watertown, New York, learned to speak Spanish fluently, graduated from Watertown, as we said, in 1976. And he also went to St. Lawrence University, just like Kirk Douglas went to. And it's funny, you say Michael Douglas, Kirk Douglas, his father, he looks more like his father than anybody. He does. That chiseled look.
Especially like in his younger years, Kirk Douglas looks exactly like Viggo Mortensen.
Of course, Kirk Douglas just died. I believe he was 100 and something.
He passed away last year, 103.
103, and Olivia de Havilland beat him by 1 year. She died last year, I believe, too, at 104 years old.
And Kirk Douglas's widow,
she just passed.
Yeah, she passed away, and she was 102.
Wow.
Back in late April, she was 102 years old.
So he attended St. Lawrence University right up in Canton. So was he living here at the time? I mean, did he live on campus? Do we know, or it doesn't really matter? But I just want to know how.
It doesn't really say. But after he graduated in 1980, because he took Spanish courses, and so after he graduated in 1980, he moved to Denmark. He worked as a truck driver. He sold flowers, but then eventually he settled on acting and moved back to the States to pursue acting.
Wow.
His first movie he did, his scenes ended up getting cut in the film, but he ended up doing a follow-up movie where the director thought he looked perfect to play the part of an Amish guy because he looked like an Amish guy.
Right.
And so he was cast in that. And then...
Well, that was Witness then.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
He did that, and what else did I see him in?
Well, go ahead.
No, I was saying, but I also saw, I've really seen him in like Lord of the Rings, Eastern Crossings, and also G.I. Jane.
Yeah, G.I. Jane. So, all right, but again, later on in his career, he seems to be, really picking up the steam, but doing less movies.
Yes.
He did Captain Fantastic, was a movie that he was nominated for Best Actor for that, but he lost that. So he seems like and of course, who could forget, was it The Green Book?
Yes, with Marsha Ali.
Yeah, see, I forget his name, but based on a true story. And I thought it was a very good movie. I didn't think it was Best Picture material. I thought it was very good, Chris. Not to quote Spike Lee, but Spike Lee lost. I forget what movie he had up against The Green Book at the time. But he also mentioned he had another movie for Best Picture nomination against... of course, Driving Miss Daisy years and years ago with Morgan Freeman.
Yes.
So he said, here it is, I lost to the same movie twice. And again, he's an obnoxious guy. But there was a lot of comparisons, obviously, because it was role reversal. Morgan Freeman is driving a white woman, and whereas Viggo Mortensen, based on a true story, is driving a jazz player in the Deep South back in the 60s and so forth. Yes. Very good. And again, Viggo put a lot of weight on. He became like a New Yorker, like a bouncer from the Copacabana and whatnot. So extremely extremely versatile. There's no question about it. And one other thing I have to mention before, this is very significant too. The Crystal Restaurant right across the way is where I met Viggo Mortensen, I believe in the year 2001.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and a friend, and unfortunately no longer with us, Chris Marcella, told me that Viggo is from this area and that he pops in every now and then. And sure enough, for a long story short, Chris, I was sitting in the back of the Crystal Restaurant. Again, this is almost 20 years ago. And I looked up front and I see this good-looking man come in with this very, very pretty woman. And it was just, I had this sixth sense that's like, oh, wait a minute, this could be that guy. So I had a cell phone, like not exactly a bag phone. It wasn't that long ago, but I picked up the phone and Chris had an office right above, and thank God he was there. I said, Chris, I think Viggo is here. Yeah. So he comes popping in, he walks in and he says hi to him. He comes back to me, he says, yeah, that's him. So, again, a long story even shorter, I left, and at that point, I had just completed my history video of Watertown in Pictures. So I ran and got a copy of it. It was a VHS copy at the time, and I handed it to him. And he thanked me for that. And he asked me if I needed it back. And I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, no, that copy's yours, Chris. So that was a big moment for me to meet Viggo in his own hometown. But I did get an understanding right then and there that he loved the history of Watertown, and I would dare say that he probably stays, up to date with what the progress of Public Square looks like in these days.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like it's your childhood home, and this place has changed dramatically in the years I've lived here.
Yeah, and it really has. And you're a young guy, and things have changed here. So hopefully he sees the progress. Not to mention, he probably brings a couple of his Hollywood friends up to Clayton every now and then.
Probably.
Yeah. So he was married to actress and singer. What's her name? Savenka?
Yeah, it sounds like Ukrainian or
big time.
Yeah,
but that didn't last too long, from 86 to 97.
No, and they got divorced. They had one son together, and then they got divorced. And then in 2009, he met Spanish actress Adriana Gil, and he's been with her ever since.
The woman that he was with that day had a Latino, resemblance to her, or look to her and whatnot. But that was before 2009. I'm wondering if that might be the same woman, though. However, so now he's living in Madrid, Spain. Any reason for living there year round, or?
I think because he's grown up in he grew up in Argentina, right? And his romantic partner is from there, and the fact that he can speak Spanish fluently, I think, are reasons why. But maybe also because he likes the area. I mean, I've seen Spain. I've seen photos of Spain. Right. It's a beautiful country, beautiful buildings, people. They have very, very traditional. It's very interesting to watch and very interesting to look at. Portugal is a really nice. Fatima is in Portugal. I would love to go there to see the last great miracle back in over 100 years ago now. But again, with respects to Viggo, doing the movies that he has done, he does have international appeal, wouldn't you say? Definitely. He's one of those faces that appeals to everyone. I'm looking him up right now on. Of course, whenever you have to look up anybody, you could obviously go your own route. But I go to IMDb as many times as possible. Do you do the same, Chris? Yes, I do. Yeah, go ahead. Or I do that, or I Google someone. Excuse me, if I can't Google them, I'll look at their MIBs and So since his screen debut as a young Amish farmer in Peter Weir's Witness, 1985, again as you mentioned, October 20th, 1958, and just a tremendous body of work. And I met his half brother. Tim Wright was his name, who unfortunately passed about 7-8 years ago, and he spoke very highly of. But the one thing that I know about the Mortensen family, whether it was his half brother or his mom and dad, very humble people. Yes, and they really didn't brag about their son. They were very proud of him, obviously. Oh yeah, but they didn't really go all. No, yeah, I think I don't like. I think bragging is a little bit of an unattractive trait. Yeah, definitely. In people. Yes. But let's face it, if my son were Viggo Mortensen, I'd be bragging all the time. Yeah. Right now, he's working on a couple of movies, but just in the last couple of years, and help me out here, I haven't heard some of these. He was in a short film in 2019, and last year he was in a movie called Falling. I didn't hear anything about that. But in 2018, Best Picture Green Book he was in. So this guy could pick up a script, and obviously, someone could hire him on the spot, but he seems to be very selective with his movies, Chris. He is. He's very particular. Yeah, because I remember he was asked to do one movie, one film role in Shakespeare's Henry V. And he ended up turning that down because he wanted to try something new.
And how'd that go?
It went pretty well, from what I read.
So it's again, the Lord of the Rings 2001, the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers 2002, and then the Lord of the Rings. How many did they do? They did 3 of them. Oh, the Return of the King was 2003. So he was in all 3.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, the third one won Best Picture.
Oh, really?
So he's already been in 2 Best Pictures: Green Book and the Lord of the Rings Part 3.
He also did a play that he ended up getting a dramatic award. Yeah, he ended up getting an award for that, for his portrayal in that of a gay man.
Oh, really? Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and all right, so and the other thing is he's an artist.
Yes, he is. He's an artist. He's pursued he's so creative. He was speaking of being an artist, he was friends with the Icelandic artist. A gentleman from Iceland who he was was a close friend of. He liked his art, and unfortunately, this guy passed away in 2011. But he was close friends with this gentleman, and liked his art. And I don't know if that influenced his art, but I think he'd been doing it before he met this gentleman.
Because Richard Grieco's from this area as well, as you know, and he became an artist.
Yes, he was also in that 21 Jump Street with Johnny Depp.
Right. And it was what was his name? Booker. Or Hooker. Booker. I can't remember his name.
Hooker.
But from time to time, I'll hear sightings of Richard Grieco. So he's gotten out of the business.
Yes.
And I know he went out with Jasmine Blythe for a while, and
really?
She had her issues and challenges. I think they both did to some degree. But again, Hollywood does that to you.
Yeah, it does. The stress of it.
The stress of it and the success of it, too.
Yes.
And the excess of it. And you and I have talked about this before, not to pick on anybody, but there's a lot of time when you sign up for a movie deal, depending upon who you are, that's a large sum of money that's deposited into your account.
Yes.
And then everyone's looking at you on the streets, no matter where you are. So that's going to go to your head.
It is.
And a guy like Viggo, that didn't seem to go to his head at all. I mean, I think he could do without acting, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, he seems to be a very humble man. I can tell by like his resting face. He's calm, very laid back,
liberal.
Yes,
very liberal.
Yes. Speaking of, I read that he supported Bernie Sanders in 2016.
Yes, doesn't surprise me.
And unfortunately, Bernie didn't make it in 2016, and he ended up supporting Jill Steed during the 2016 because of her.
Yes,
she was in the Green Party.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think he also wrote about how 2016 was like this sort of revolution in our country, like during Trump's 4 years in office was like this revolution the country was going through that time, and trying to define who we wanted to be as a people.
Well, yeah, and he also endorsed a doctor who ran up against, at the time, the then Congressperson John McHugh, and that was unheard of. I mean, here it was, no one really, said anything against the incumbent John McHugh.
No.
And this doctor actually ran against him. This was 20 years ago, and he lost. But you know what? There was definitely a lesser gap, if you will, between McHugh and previous candidates. Whether or not Viggo had anything to do with that, I don't know. But star power helps, and that's why Hollywood gets involved with politics more often than I think they should. So, okay, G.I. Jane, 1997, Vanishing Point. That was a remake of a movie back from the early 70s. It was made for TV. I actually saw parts of that. Viggo was very good in that. So again, during the 90s, when he was making a name for himself, he was doing TV movies and other big movies. You had mentioned Carlito's Way. He was in that. I thought he was miscast in that, though, because he played a guy, paraplegic in a wheelchair, and he looked too good for that role.
Right. Yeah, he also did remakes of Alfred Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder.
Okay.
And what was the other one? He did. He also did films with Sean Penn. He's been in so many, but you only hear about the more prominent ones like Lord of the Rings, or Green Book, or G.I. Jane. But he's just
Hidalgo, another one, and then also I don't know if you saw this is his apocalyptic movie he did back in 2009 called The Road. Did you ever see that?
No.
Which is good because I like post apocalyptic world, the afterlife, and who survives and who doesn't. It's very creepy. It's a short movie. But again, just looking at the last 5-8 years or so, he hasn't done all that much. Captain Fantastic, Green Book, Darrow Gorn, never heard of it. It's a short. And like I said, he did Falling last year. So now he's going to be working on a movie called Unabomber. I don't know if that's the Unabomber. Do you know anything about that?
No.
Could he play the Unabomber? I guess he actually could.
He could.
Ted Lizinski, I believe his name. 13 Lives, and then Crimes of the Future. Famous actor, good person,
yes.
And he never forgets his roots. That's for sure. And he didn't forget his mom and dad. And it's good. Although he has a house in Madrid, like you said, he's got a beautiful place right here in northern New York on the river. Now again, History Through the Eyes of a Millennial with Chris Specificity is in his 7th episode. We've shortened them down here, but we're featuring a lot of things about actors and a little bit of politics, but it all comes back to one thing: is that your involvement with the movie and the theme of movies and what happened to the actors and how they got involved and so forth. You know a lot of the background to in this case Viggo Mortensen and others. Again, Chris, as a young man, do you feel like today's actors are as good, if not better, than a Viggo Mortensen in your generation?
There are I mean, I don't really pay attention. I mean, there are. My particular favorite actors are Jeremy Irons, Johnny Depp, Viggo Mortensen, Tom Hanks. Who else?
Well, that's a pretty good list right there.
And Michael Douglas. And my female actresses are Glenn Close, Meryl Streep, Helen Mirren, Sophia Loren. Miranda and
Sophia Loren. Oh my God, you are going back.
And Miranda Richardson. Yeah, Sophia Loren I saw she did a movie that was produced by Harvey Weinstein's company in 2009. It was called Nine. It was based on it starred Daniel Day-Lewis, Penelope Cruz, Kate Hudson, Marion Cotland, Judi Dench, and Fergie and her, and Nicole Kidman. In it, Daniel Day-Lewis plays a famous Italian director named Guido Contini. It's set in Italy in 1962. But Sophia Loren's character plays Guido's mother. We see her like in flashbacks and also in dream sequences he has in the movie. Yeah, she did that. She also did a movie more recently where she plays a madame of a brothel in Italy.
Nice.
Yeah, she was doing that. She's 86 years old now.
Is she? Sophia Loren's 86 years old.
Yes.
And again, one thing about Sophia, it's a big thing about her, is she didn't have the quintessential features of a Hollywood actress.
No.
But she had, because of the longer nose, the face, the curves, voluptuous woman.
Yes.
So she had that distinctive Italian, Sicilian, whatever look.
Yes.
That made her famous. Not to mention, she was a really good actress.
And I've read about how the prejudice towards Italian people,
right.
Orson Welles, his third wife was an Italian countess, and he had to disguise, and his movies had to disguise her Italian accent, and he basically had to change her name to make it sound more American sounding.
Wow.
But people didn't treat her nicely because she was Italian.
Yeah, it's interesting how the Italians have been discriminated against, and yet somehow or other Christopher Columbus has been delegated the top guy in terms of slavery and the symbol of slavery in America. So, which is just insane. All right, so you mentioned earlier. I got to go back to this. Glenn Close and Michael Douglas. So, is that easy to suffice? That Fatal Attraction might be one of your favorite movies?
Yes, it is. It is. I mean, in Glenn Close. She's good at playing characters, but like some kind of like with issues. She's good at like when she. I also liked her portrayal of Sonny Von Bulow in Reversal of Fortune with Jeremy Irons, and when she played real American era Martha Shop Crawford was her name, but she was known as Sonny because of her cheerful personality. And she was married to Jeremy Irons' character Klaus Von Bulow.
Yes,
and it's believed that Klaus Von Bulow murdered her by trying to make her overdose on insulin because she had high glucose levels to try to inherit her $100 million fortune.
Right, in Rhode Island. Yeah,
yes,
and he did
Rhode Island.
He did an excellent job.
Yes.
And Jeremy Irons, I think he won Best Actor for that. And also, you had mentioned earlier, Jeremy Irons is also in a movie directed by David Cronenberg called Dead Ringers, where he played himself twice as a identical twin, a doctor up in Toronto. Although it doesn't say that, but that's where it was shot.
Right.
But again, great actor, great look.
Yes.
From Europe, I'm assuming.
He's from England.
He's from England. And yet, going back to Viggo Mortensen, Viggo is one of us. He's an American, but he could have been a British bad guy in a James Bond movie.
He could. He could have been James Bond himself.
Yeah, he could.
He could have been.
Yeah.
But
that's true. Good point.
But getting back to Jeremy Irons, he actually met the real Klaus von Bülow.
Really?
3 years after he did the movie.
Wow.
Because when Klaus was found not guilty at a second trial, Sonny's 2 oldest children from her first marriage, because she had 3 children. She had 2 by an Austrian prince, and then she had 1 with Klaus. And her 2 from her first marriage offered him an ultimatum. He would divorce Sonny, give up all claims to her fortune, and leave the country.
Wow.
And he did. And he divorced her, and he moved to England. And after his daughter with Sonny, Cosima, graduated from Brown University, she joined him out in England. But Jeremy Irons was on the estate of J. Paul Getty, because he was friends with J. Paul Getty, and also Klaus worked as an aide to J. Paul Getty before he married Sonny.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was there because his son's favorite I think it was rugby player was there.
Yeah.
And his son Max Irons, and so he was there. And then Jay goes up to him and says, "Klaus is in the house. He's looking in the library." And then eventually, Jeremy hears his voice behind him, and he goes, "I'm not fat."
Right.
And he turns around and he says, "Klaus, I never said you were fat. I just said you were bigger than me." Oh. He goes, "So have you heard from Alan Dershowitz these days?"
Yeah, right.
And
his
attorney.
Yeah.
And he's, "No, I heard, but he's defending someone else." He said, "You haven't asked to play any of them, have you?" No, I think they might be a bit out of my reach.
Yeah. Well, obviously they were within his reach because so again, a versatile actor. We started from the beginning. Viggo Mortensen, Jeremy Irons, perfect mix there.
Yes.
There's many others, but again, you and I talked at length about more American actors like Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt has a lot of versatility, and yet he's screwed up over the years because he played an Irish terrorist with. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was Harrison Ford. Really? And again, he was a young actor at the time. He didn't have that. He didn't have that ability. But again, some guys can. Some guys can play basically anyone from most continents and so forth, and get away with it. And Jeremy Irons, perfect example of that. And often, as you and I talked about, a lot of foreign actors and British actors, particularly, playing American roles.
Yeah, and also on who was it? One of the most in one of the Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah.
The main villain in The Last Crusade was a British actor playing an American.
Yeah.
I thought that was he did a pretty good job of that. And
it's amazing that because again we can do a British accent. I was thinking like you were doing one earlier.
Yeah.
It's funny to think that British people or anyone for that matter do American accents. Isn't that odd? Doesn't that seem weird to you?
It is. The actress and model Cara Delevingne, when she did an interview on the Graham Norton show, she accidentally slipped into an American voice.
Yeah.
And she's actually played American roles. I've seen her in Paper Towns, Suicide Squad, in which she played the Enchantress.
Yeah.
And she did one with Jaden Smith, in which she plays a girl who's dying from cancer. Which is kind of reminiscent of another movie from 13 years earlier called Keith. It starred Jesse McCartney and the girl who played the forensics girl on Criminal Minds. You would recognize her if you saw her. But yeah, in that it's similar to that. And with the guy Jesse McCartney's character is a guy who's dying from cancer. Keith is his name in the movie, and he ends up falling in love with this popular, smart, driven, straight A student girl.
Sure.
And I've seen bits of the movie and it looked good.
All right, so again, you and I can go back and forth. We could be Siskel and Ebert and talking about old movies, old actors, and of course, if you and I would just to literally sit and watch 4 or 5 movies like Siskel and Ebert did every week, and new movies, that is, the movies that have just been released, more than likely you would like them more than me, but I know you enough now, to Chris, to understand, of course, that you'd be discerning enough to say that movies today aren't as good as they were back in the day.
Not very many. Not me. It's always it's. I feel like the superhero genre,
Right.
and also like the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I mean, I'm not complaining. I love Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, can't you be more original than that?
Yeah, right.
I know. I mean, it's like, they're very. There was one. There are a couple that came out in the last few years that I want to see. That there was one called The Good Liar with Sir Ian McKellen and Dame Helen Mirren, which I thought was very good. There was also Denzel Washington and Rami Malek play these two cops trying to track down this serial killer. And
that's a recent movie too?
Yes, it came out, I think, last year.
So again, COVID really put the damper in as far as myself is concerned. And then you and I talked about the Oscars a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
We hardly heard any of the movies that were nominated, and that's weird because we had a lot of time to see them, Chris.
Right. It's like back then, like the movies that were like usually up for Best Picture or like Best Screenplay, Best Songs, whatever.
Yeah.
Were well known that were in theaters. That
Blockbuster,
you knew,
or not necessarily block, but everyone everyone knew exactly what they were. Yeah.
I mean, Beauty and the Beast, when it came out in 1991, it ran won Best Music because that was the first movie to do that. The only movie, and exactly 10 years later, when Moulin Rouge came out with Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman, that movie won Best Picture. It was the first movie since Beauty and the Beast 10 years earlier to win Best Picture.
Wow.
Yes.
Moulin Rouge won Best Picture?
No, not best musical.
Musical, okay, gotcha.
Not Best Picture.
Because 4 years later, I believe, that's when Chicago came out, and that won Best Picture. So, which I thought was to this day, and I've seen a lot of musicals. Of course, musicals were a lot more popular back in the 40s, 50s, 60s even, and then kind of they died out in the 70s. But for Chicago to come out, I believe 2004, 2005, Chris, somewhere thereabouts, shot in Toronto, by the way, just one of the best movies I've ever seen. Every time I see that on cable, I have to watch it. It's that good.
And also Baz Luhrmann, who directed Moulin Rouge and The Great Gatsby, his way with music, taking old settings like early 1900s Paris or 1920s New York and putting like modern music. He gets some very popular artists like in the scene where we're meeting Harold Zitler, who is the owner of the Moulin Rouge, and all his diamond dogs, as they're called, his girls. That song that's played, it's called Little Marmalade. It had Pink and Christina Aguilera, and other famous names, and also when in The Great Gatsby, when Jay's having his party, his famous party,
out in the Hamptons,
and he and that song had Fergie, and had Fergie, Q-Tip, Moon Rock. And they're using another famous popular song that I have on my phone.
Yeah,
he's good at like mixing hip hop with like these old settings. He has a way of doing that.
Well, it seemed like the director of Hamilton, obviously bringing hip hop to history, and obviously bringing an entirely new audience to American history. Not enough was. I mean, we don't have enough time in any given day or week or month, for that matter, to talk about the magnitude of Alexander Hamilton.
No,
other than he's on currency and so forth, and he should have been president, but he wasn't born here, and he started Wall Street, and he did so many things, and yet the average person even now doesn't know enough about it. So thank goodness for Hamilton. Although again, not my style of storytelling, but it certainly helped. Did you see Hamilton by any chance, Chris?
I did. I saw it on Disney Plus with a friend of mine. It was a good story. It was also interesting. It was complex how he was pushing for policies and things that weren't really popular at the time. This was like the late early 1800s.
Yeah, sure.
And he suffered tragedy. His son died in a duel in 1801. Then he died the following year from a duel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Aaron Burr.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. What was that?
Was it Aaron Burr that shot him in Alexander Hamilton? I'm pretty sure it was. I'm remembering a really bad. Actually, it wasn't. It was a good lottery commercial where they said, "Who shot Alexander Hamilton?" And the guy's like looking at a phone. He just ate like cookies, and he didn't have milk to wash it down.
Yeah.
So he picks up. He goes, Aaron Burr. And he goes, what? He goes, Aaron. He couldn't say Aaron Burr. Anyway,
Yeah.
long. But that was my experience. But amazingly enough, that's all I knew about Alexander Hamilton, which is awful because I went to a private school. I didn't know enough about him. But it just goes to show. That, by the way, Hamilton's on, I believe, the $20 bill. He is on the $20 bill. They were actually questioning whether or not to take him off there because, again, being part of the colonial time and period and so forth, oppression, slavery, and the whole new reset button. They decided not to because of the popularity of the play. And
also, his widow and his children lived into their they had unusually long lifespans.
Yeah.
For that, his widow lived to be 97, and his children lived into their late 80s, early 90s.
Which back then, like you said, the mortality rate was a lot lower than it is today. Certainly,
it is. It's incredible how long like she went on almost 50 years, lived down another 50 years before she passed away.
Isn't that something?
And her children, and the child, she had lost the duel. She and Alexander had another son who was just a baby at the time when he was shot. Mm-hmm. They named after their firstborn son, but they all lived into their 80s, early 90s.
Can you believe being in a culture where duels were legal? I mean, that was part of resolving things.
It was part of resolving things. Also, it was also like an honor.
Yeah, yeah. Well, man, did women ever get into duels? I doubt it.
No.
So the story is, I believe it happened. It was in New Jersey. I don't know if it was Nutley, New Jersey, whatever, but it was a small, obviously hamlet at the time in Jersey where the duel took place. Whether or not the dispute happened in New York City and they couldn't do it there, and they went across the river. But the story goes, Alexander Hamilton didn't shoot back. He basically just waited for Aaron Burr to shoot him. Do you know anything about that, and why? It does. I mean, again, what an honorable person, and yet what a waste.
I know.
And then and then Aaron didn't do much after that. I believe he got embroiled in scandal after all of that was said and done. But just think about that. I mean, again, a long time ago, but in the whole scheme of things, not that long ago. And as far as civilizations, okay. If you say that this, take a glove, slap him across the face, and that denotes the fact that now you guys can have a legal way of killing each other with a revolver with one bullet in it. Or I don't know how they did it, but at the time, I don't know if they had revolvers back in the time of Hamilton. An extraordinary time, and very thankful, Chris, that doesn't exist today. Would you agree with that?
Oh God, we don't have duels, but we have mass shootings, which is worse than what Hamilton went through.
Yeah, true. And there's a lot more. Well, there's a lot more people, but there's a lot more guns. I'm not a gun owner, but I know that there's a lot of gun owners out there that are very, very responsible. But obviously, there's enough guns out there in the wrong hands. And you're right. We see and hear about it all the time. It's to the point, Chris, where we're so desensitized to it, we just don't pay any attention to it. All right. So violence, in Viggo movies, yes, a lot. We talked about a history of violence, Eastern Crossings, but he did a lot of romantic movies as well. Versatility was clearly Viggo, and we just hope that despite the fact I just looked up IMDb, he's not doing all that much now. But you know what? He's one of the best actors, so he could basically pick and choose what he wants to do there, Chris.
He was, and also in that, getting back to that Eastern Crossing, he was fully they showed him nude, and that actually having sex with one of the girls.
What wasn't the nude scene? Wasn't he beating up someone in a bathhouse or something? Or I didn't see that movie, which is amazing because I've seen basically every David Cronenberg movie at least 3-4 times. And by the way, recently I saw The Dead Zone, parts of it again on TV with Christopher Walken. And again, Christopher Walken had that kind of international look too, despite the fact he's from where I am. He's from Queens, New York.
Yeah, and I loved Christopher Walken as the Headless Horseman and Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. I thought he did a good job playing a ferocious, a terrifying being.
Well, just look at him. I mean, as he's gotten old, he's got that crazy look to him. One thing that he said, if he could take back, he wouldn't have done that bit on Saturday Night Live, more cowbell. He says it's one of the worst things. Because when some schmuck, particularly if they see Christopher Walken on the streets somewhere and some drunk sees him, inevitably he's going to say more cowbell.
You know what's funny?
Which is very rude.
Yeah, wasn't that from 2003? That joke?
I don't know. I know. what's his face was on the show at the time because he's doing the cowboy. What's his name? But I think it was from the 90s, but whatever. Yeah, it was some time ago.
And because there's this Disney video game I have. It's called The Haunted Mansion. It's based on the ride in the movie. This video game, and in it, one of the ghosts who's based on a group of famous ghosts that appears in the graveyard scene in the ride called the Phantom Five. He said. He's saying cowbell. I think we need more cowbell.
That's right.
Can't we just get a bit more cowbell? And the other guy next to him says cowbell. Yeah, more cowbell.
And again, and if Christopher Walken heard that, he like winced because that's sometimes that happened. I mean, the one who played Marcia in the Brady Bunch. What was it? It was Eve McCormick. Oh no,
Maureen
McCormick. Beautiful woman.
Yes.
And again, I had a crush on her. She was a couple of years older than me, but that was my era and whatnot. And she won't even look at those episodes. She won't even look at any of her episodes as Marcia. And a lot of it had to do with, just the way that, again, sometimes when you typecast a very iconic show, the Brady Bunch, and she played the beautiful, older sister, and her middle sister resented her. And this is all fiction, and yet it was coming out in real life. They actually had resentment with each other. So It's amazing. Yeah. So and I'm reading up on all this, and whether or not it's true or not, but I know she wrote a book. She also had a drug issue while she was doing that show. As a young teenager, she was having relations with other actors, including like Sammy Davis. If you could think about that,
Sammy Davis Jr.
Who was at least 30 years older than her at the time.
Yeah, he would have been. Yeah, he's got to be like, I think, 30 years older.
Yeah, at least. And then for drugs, a lot of it was in exchange for cocaine.
Yeah,
so
sex for drugs.
Again, not to suggest that her character got got her involved with that, although Fame did. But again, it's amazing how she sometimes when in the case of a body of work by Christopher Walken, and it's huge, that one little bit that he did on Saturday Night Live. Just the other day, Elon Musk hosted Saturday Night Live, and he made a joke about his company, and the stock went down dramatically hours later. So we got to be careful about what we say, particularly these days, Chris, because social media is permanent. Once you type up something about whatever, someone could do a screensaver of that or whatever. You could delete it. It doesn't really matter. So you got to be very, very careful.
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm careful what I say.
And we all do. But especially celebrity. Roseanne Barr is a perfect example of someone should keep her mouth shut at 3 o'clock in the morning when she makes bad comments about people part of the Obama administration.
Yeah, Valerie Jarrett.
Jarrett. Yeah. She referred to her as a character from Planet of the Apes movies.
Yeah.
Which was the Tim Burton version back in 2000, out of the blue for no reason, and she blamed it on some medication and so forth. So be it. She was also the one that was very famous for singing the national anthem at San Diego back in the late 80s, early 90s, and making a mockery of it. And that wasn't very good. But at the end of the day, I like Roseanne Barr. And she was one of the examples of someone who actually looks better as she got older.
I think she did.
She was a big woman.
Yes, she was.
Very average looking. And now I look at her and she looks great. And that was 30, 40 years later after she became famous on the Johnny Carson show.
Did you ever see her roast on Comedy Central?
I probably did. When they roasted her?
Yeah, on Comedy Central back in 2012. It was funny.
Yeah.
I think the best one was Gilbert Godfrey. The best roaster was Gilbert Godfrey.
Yeah.
And she's like red-faced the entire time.
Yeah.
Her, Anthony Jeselnik, and are just like and that Helen Barkin too. She's like, hang on, Jeff Ross she's like laughing, but and it was that, and it was also Carrie Fisher was one of the roasters too.
Well, yeah. Again, I watched those, and I was a big fan of the Dean Martin roast back in the '70s, and they were vicious, particularly when Don Rickles went up there. But again, I'm not saying I don't watch the roast. I don't see them as often. Maybe COVID had a reason behind that. But Bruce Willis was one of the last ones. I've seen him before. The cable guy would have
Larry the Cable Guy, Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, and there was one guy that did them. I'm forgetting. Greg Giraldo was his name, who died.
Yes.
After doing a performance in New Brunswick, New Jersey, about 15 years ago, and he was a stand-up comedian. He had his own show in the '90s. He was a lawyer at one time, and all of a sudden he just got really good at roasts. And if you see his early roasts, he would read them. He would be confused. He would looking on both sides of the piece of paper, and then all of a sudden he got really good at it.
Yes.
So he was like the new Don Rickles of those roasts, and he was vicious.
Yes, he was. He died in 2010, not long after the the David Hasselhoff roast, but I loved him. Yeah, I loved him in the Larry the Cable Guy roast. That was so funny.
Oh my God!
I loved that. I liked Nick DiPaolo. He did the Larry the Cable Guy roast.
Right. He looked like spina bifida. He looked like Frankenstein with the bolts on your neck. But some of the stuff. But he talked about McCormick early. He did her roast. Is it or not her roast, but she was
her
she was in the audience. Because if you're in the audience, it doesn't matter if you're being roasted.
Yeah.
If you're there,
right,
you're roasted.
Yeah, she was on the panel with everyone else.
Right. It's like, holy shit! I didn't know I could get an 8-ball. You know, all I needed to do was get an 8-ball. I can have you in my backseat of my car. And it's just the way he said it, and just the way the audience would react to it. It was so well done.
I know.
And then he died.
I know. Drug overdose. Accidental drug overdose.
His life was just starting again.
Yes.
And then he blew it. And it's so sad because once you go over that precipice, once you go over, you can't come back.
No.
You know, James Gandolfini's not coming back.
No. And he just died from, like, I think probably from being too overweight.
Too big. He was drinking all types of concoctions that night. He had just flown into Italy that day, I believe, and it was hot, oppressive heat. Again, in Europe, it was a police car. In Europe, they don't have the air conditioning we have.
No.
And as it turned out, he was in his hotel room. He was up on the 4th or 5th floor, and they had to get him out of there. He was such a big man. It was taking way too much time.
Yes.
Plus, someone stole his Rolex while it was all going on. And that's, again, because they kind of, in The Sopranos, they mocked Italy in a sense because of how dirty it was, and it's not as romantic as it's portrayed in Sophia Loren movies. Yeah, the episodes when they went over there. So even Paulie Walnuts, who was always cleaning his fingernails and the dog shit and the treads of his car, and he's just they kind of looked around and they weren't impressed by it. And I thought that was interesting because when I found out that he died in Rome, but he was robbed too in the process. I said that was, you know what, they kind of mocked Italy in The Sopranos for that. It's a horrible thing what happened to him. For dying for one thing, but the theft of his Rolex was just inexcusable.
Do you think that's why there's prejudice towards Italians because they view us because of how our country is, how it looks really?
I just think it comes down to, you know, I think what I was learning from that, I've never been to Italy, but you know, don't base things on the cover of the book. You know, don't base things on a Sophia Loren movie or Three Coins in the Fountain. I don't even know if that took place in Rome, whichever. Don't base it on Hollywood because at the end of the day, you're going to go there and you're going to realize it's not that at all.
No.
And not to downplay Italy or anywhere over there. It's a beautiful country. But that's how they portrayed it in those episodes, and that's how he died. And it's sad to you know. Of course, obviously they brought him back. He had his funeral. It was very moving.
Yes.
But just one of the biggest losses. One thing I can say about Gandolfini though is that he would have been typecast for the rest of his life.
Yes.
I don't know where his career would have went without Tony Soprano.
The last movie he did was with Julie Louis-Dreyfus. It was called Enough Said, and he wasn't typecast in that. I feel like he wasn't.
But the one thing about it was, again, the Sopranos, the greatest show of all time, and I think we can agree on that.
Yes.
His way of doing Tony Soprano, and then when he goes back to his normal voice, is too different. It's like this isn't working.
Right.
So when I saw him in the Last Castle with Robert Redford, and that movie was a mockery, and then he also did The Mexican with Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts. Those were bad movies, and he wasn't. If he can't play Tony Soprano, unfortunately, I think it would have haunted him for the rest of his life.
Tony Soprano. Yeah, a role like that. I think I also like sitcoms like King of Queens when Kevin James tried to do another sitcom on CBS.
Right.
You know, the wife he had been cast with in the first season didn't work out, and they ended up killing her off. And they bring up his wife from like his King of Queens.
Lisa
days.
Remy.
Lisa Remy.
Yeah.
They did that. Also,
but he was playing the same guy.
Pretty much.
I mean, he instead of being a UPS guy, he was a police officer, whatever the deal was.
Yeah.
From Long Island.
I know, and also, who was it? Matt LeBlanc. He tried to do another. He did another. Tried to do another sitcom on CBS that didn't last. And
Joey.
Joey.
And Adriana played his girlfriend, or at least his friend in that show from The Sopranos.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. And she did a lot of things in Law and Order. She had a kid, and she put on a lot of weight. But Adriana, I forget her name in the show, but one of the hottest girls ever on TV.
Yeah, I know. And unfortunately, she ends up getting caught by the FBI, and she has to wear a wire. And then Silvio has no choice but to whack her.
Yeah. Don't worry, he's going to be fine. Yeah, we'll get him some counseling. Meanwhile, she's looking out the window.
And she realizes, like, oh shit, this guy's really gonna F and whack me.
There's a thumbnail of that. Again, once you start looking on something online, on YouTube and whatnot, it's going to come visit you again and again. So, needless to say, I have a lot of experiences with The Sopranos. So the one bit that one segment you're talking about is when Adriana gets whacked in the woods. She's just the thumbnail of it is that Silvio's driving, he's looking ahead, he's on the Palisades Parkway, wherever, and she's just looking out the window.
Yeah,
and she knows that this was a bad mistake to get into this car.
Oh, by far.
It's one of the hardest scenes to watch, and I think David Chase and them did a really nice job. Instead of having her, get shot and blood all over the place, you just kind of assume that she's going to die.
Yeah, well, you hear her get killed off screen.
Off screen, because and again, the other just to finish things off, Bobby, David Chase actually came over to his house. And Bobby thought that it was a surprise. He said, "Hey, I'm coming over," and then Bobby said, "Oh, wow, okay." So, that's also the kiss of death. That means like, oh, your character's going to get killed in this. And well, obviously, most of them did anyway. But he thought that was a badge of honor that David Chase actually came over and told them that your character's going to get killed this season.
Well, probably because you think your character, like when you're an actor, you treat your character like it's your child.
Yeah, right.
And to say, hey, like probably he had to want to do it, say in person, like, hey, like we're gonna kill off your character in this coming season, this coming episode.
Yeah.
Just want to give you a heads up.
Yeah.
Just gives you some time to prepare yourself for that to do that.
Tell your wife.
Yeah.
Janice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think. Also, who was it? There's something else I wanted to add to that. But yeah, that there was, that what I did see that scene where Bobby got. He was in a train. He was in a toy
he was
store.
buying an $8,000 train set, and it's like, I got other people looking at it, and then next thing you know, these two white guys come in, look like they're teenagers, and they shoot again. This didn't happen. These people didn't exist.
No.
And as far as what they were portraying at that time in the early 2000s, that didn't exist either. It's barely exists now. I'm talking about the mafia. But the way they portrayed it, they became the mafia.
Yes.
The mafia was curtailed dramatically under Giuliani and others, other DAs throughout the country, where organized crime wasn't what it used to be.
Right.
But when The Sopranos came back in 1999, they brought that back to life.
Yes.
And that's why people followed that show so well, because it was just like you're saying, it was so true.
Yeah, and also we hear today people trying to like rid the system of corruption and evil. It's like, I don't think you're going to rid that monster, get that monster out of the justice system. No,
definitely not. No, but it's not going to be at the same level it used to be. And the biggest reason is because there's no loyalty in organized crime anymore.
No.
And that happened years ago, where people started tattling, and we see that in Goodfellas, the story of Henry Hill, how he obviously betrayed the family and whatnot. So that whole notion of Cosa Nostra couldn't be what it used to be.
Have you ever seen Law Abiding Citizen with Jamie Foxx and Gerard Butler? Well, basically in it, Gerard Butler's character loses his family to loses his wife and daughter to these two junkies. And, he goes to Jamie Foxx's character, who's a prosecutor, and he's begging them, put them on, take them to trial, try them both. But, Jamie Foxx, who knew there wasn't enough evidence to there was a chance that they could walk away.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't, the evidence wasn't strong enough to tie them both to the crime.
Right.
And, he didn't want to lower his 99% conviction rate.
Right.
And so he ended up making a deal with the guy who actually did kill his wife and daughter, in exchange that the other guy would be sentenced to death, and he and Darby himself, who was the guy who killed his wife, Gerard Butler's character's wife and daughter, would get like 5 years at most, and then he ended up getting released. And you can say Gerard Butler's character looked betrayed. He was angry and felt betrayed. And then this is in 1999. This first part of the movie, And then 10 years later in 2009, it's like he's killing people in the justice. He's killing he's telling Nick, fix this broken, diseased, written temple. I'm gonna bring it down on your head. It's we effing biblical.
Right.
And before he was, and the reason why he could do all this because he was an engineer.
Right.
He also during the 10 years since he lost his wife and daughter, was working for the DHS, creating weapons, killing bad guys.
Right.
He unthinkable ways of killing people while even having to move.
Oh.
Having to go in their house and just simple things, place a bomb in their tie, their phone, whatever.
Right.
Doing that. And then Jimmy Foxx's character was gets out front because he ends up killing one of his friends, who was a member of his team, and he grabs Clyde, Gerard Butler's character, and he's like, if we had taken Ames and Darby to trial, they would have both gone free. And then Clyde counters back and says to him, you didn't care, you didn't even try. If you at least tried and failed, I would have accepted it, he said.
Wow.
Yeah.
And geez, boy, that's a good way to finish off the show right there, because that's part of what Chris Specificity is all about. History through the eyes of a millennial, obviously analyzing movies and analyzing the characters and, of course, the storylines behind all that. Chris, always an honor to talk to you each and every Thursday here from the H2O studios. We do it here, and we're getting more creative with your presentation too, and as far as what people and how people can hear this or watch it on YouTube as well and on Facebook. So this was episode number 7?
Yes,
number 7, and we'll talk to more about more things in the future. More than likely, it will have a lot to do with the entertainment business and the comparisons between then and now, according to Chris Specificity, History Through the Eyes of a Millennial. I'm Glenn Curry from H2O Studios. We'll talk to you guys real soon. Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you.